Hi, Sumit. Welcome back to my channel. It's Needles by Tiara here. And on today's tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to draft a perfect pencil skirt with a butt lift contour. So with me, I have my pattern paper well laid out. Please go ahead to fold your pattern paper into two by dividing your client hip circumference by 4 plus 2 inches extra allowance, which would be your seam or sewing line allowance. So with that being said, we'll go ahead to take down all our required measurements for this butt lift contour skirt. So the first measurement you're going to be needing is your client's waist to hip point. And next on the list is your client's waist to knee point, which is this. So my client's waist to knee point is my client's skirt, my client's waist to full skirt length point. So my knee point is my skirt full length point. So in case yours would not be stopping at your knee point, please go ahead to impute your client's waist to full skirt length point, having imputed your client's waist to knee point. Next is your client's waist circumference, your client's hip circumference, your client's knee circumference, and lastly, your client's waist to under butt point. So these measurements are very important. Please you'd ensure that you get all these basic measurements. So like I said, you'll be needing your client's waist to hip point, your client's waist to knee point, your client's waist circumference, hip circumference, knee circumference, and of course your waist to under butt point. I hope you understand. So like I said before, please ensure your pattern paper is on fold. Having done that, we'll go ahead to determine the part which will be marking our starting line. So I'm going to be using this part of my pattern paper, and at that point I'm going to be marking out a straight line on that point, which is basically what I'm doing now. So with that being done, that is our starting line, which would also be our client's waist point line. So placing our tape from our waist point line, which is our starting line, would go ahead to mark the distance between our client's waist to hip point, which is this. So mine is 9 inches. Now we'd go ahead to mark our client's waist to knee point. So at this point, like I said, if you want to make this into a long skirt, please go ahead to impute your client's waist to knee point, and lastly your client's waist to your skirt full length point. So with that being done, we'll go in with our straight ruler and we'll connect all the points into each other to form a straight line. Now at your skirt full length, you're going to be coming down by 2 inches, which will serve as your skirt folding allowance. So my knee point is my skirt full length, and I'm coming down at that point by 2 inches for my skirt folding allowance. Now going with your straight ruler and connect all the points into each other to form a straight line. Having done that, we'll go ahead to label our pattern. So this is my waist point, my hip point, my knee point, and lastly my full skirt folding allowance, which is this. Having gotten all our basic points for our point measurement, which is our vertical measurement, now moving on to our horizontal measurement, which is our circumference measurement, we'll go ahead to divide our client's waist circumference by 4, and please at your waist point go ahead to impute that value on that point. Go in for that extra move with 1 inch, which will serve as your dart allowance. Now on your hip point line, go ahead to divide your client's hip circumference by 4, and do go ahead to chalk it down at that point. And now at your knee point, please pay keen attention. So one of the required measurements we needed is our client's knee circumference. So like I said, please ensure that you take your client's knee circumference and make sure that the measurement is as free as possible for your client to be able to walk comfortably in it. So for a basic skirt, at your knee point, you're expected to subtract 1 inch from whatever you have as your hip circumference divided by 4. So you're supposed to subtract 1 inch at that point, and you'd go ahead to chalk it down at your knee point. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're not going to be doing that. Rather, we're going to be dividing our client's knee circumference, which we've taken the measurement already, and would mark it down at our knee point line. So whatever you have at that point, please go ahead to chalk it down at your folding allowance point. So with that being said, from the 1 inch extra that we added to our waist circumference divided by 4, we're going to be connecting from that point all the way down to our hip point, our knee point, and lastly our folding allowance points. So with the aid of my slightly curved ruler, I'll go ahead to place it and connect it all the way in. And now from our hip point, we're going to be using our straight ruler to extend that point all the way down here. So from your hip point, connect it down to your knee point, and extensively go in with your straight ruler again and connect from your knee point to your skirt folding allowance point, which is this. So now on your hip point, you'd go ahead to blend that point into each other to get a smooth curve for that point. So you do not want any sharp edge or any pointy edge at that point. So now you're going to be dividing your client's bust span, which is your nipple to nipple, by 2, and you'll be chalking it down on your waist point, which is what I did. Now placing my tape from my waist point, I'll come down by 5 inch, which will be my dart length. Now I'll be imputing that value at that point, which is my dart length. Now I'll go in with our straight ruler and I'll be connecting from that point all the way down to that point. So this is basically to form a straight line for your dart length. So having done that, remember vividly that we did added an extra 1 inch to our waist circumference. So that was for our dart allowance. So we're going to be distributing that value evenly on both sides. So 0.5 inch for your center fronts and 0.5 inch for your side fronts. With that being done, we'll go in with our straight ruler and we'll be connecting on from both points all the way down to that point. So just basically watch what I'm doing at this point and do go ahead to replicate same. So we've done that for our center front. Now we'd go ahead to replicate same for our side fronts as well. So with this being done, you've successfully imputed your darts. So now at my center front, which is that starting line, we're going to be chalking down 0.5 inch from our waist point line. So placing your tape from your waist point line, you'll be coming down by 0.5 inch. And now you go ahead to overlap your darts on each other. So just go ahead to overlap it on each other and go in with your masking tape to hold it down. With that being done, you'd go in with your straight ruler and you'll be connecting from the 0.5 inch which you came down with at your waist point all the way into your waist point side front. So this is basically what we did at this point. You'd go ahead to take off your masking tape and voila, your front skirt pattern is ready. So before we go ahead to cut out all the parts, so if you want to add your basic allowance, you could go ahead to add it. I do not necessarily like adding my basic sewing allowance on my pattern. However, for the sake of those who will, so you just go ahead to add either 1 inch, which is basically what I'm doing at this point, at your waist points, on your hip points, at your knee points, and lastly your skirt folding allowance points. Reconnect it again with your slightly curved ruler and extend it from your hip all the way down to your knee point with your straight ruler. And of course, blend from that knee point all the way down to your folding allowance this way. So on your hip points, go ahead to blend that point into each other. We do not want any sharp edge at any given point. So from my center front at my waist point, I'm going to be going up by 0.5 inch, following that line that we drew at that point. So you're going to be taking up 0.5 inch, which would basically be my turn up allowance. So remember, this skirt does not have a band. So I'm not going to be attaching any band to the skirt. Hence the reason for this. Even when you're attaching it to a band, you're definitely going to be needing the 0.5 inch allowance. But for the sake of this tutorial, I won't be attaching any band, so I didn't subtract it. And as well, we've gone ahead to add all our basic, required allowances. So with that being done, we'll go ahead to reconnect this point extensively all the way up to the 0.5 inch allowance which we have at that point. Now we'd go in with our scissors and we'd go ahead to cut out all our parts, following all our curves and all the lines that we drew out. So this is it for this point. We'd go ahead to take out the excesses that we have at our full length point, which is basically this. Now we'll go ahead to take off this part as well. So at this point, please just watch the way I'm taking this off and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. So having eliminated all our excesses, our front pattern is ready. So we're going to be keeping this aside and we'll be working on the back pattern. So we've gone ahead to lay our pattern paper and we'll be rolling out a straight line just like we did for the front bodies. So now for our skirt zipper allowance, I'm going to be using the value of 1.5 inch, which I'm going to be taking that measurement all the way down. With that being done, we'll go ahead to reintroduce our straight ruler and we'll be connecting all those points into each other to form a straight line, which is this. Having gotten our starting line, which is our waist point and our zipper point, we're going to go ahead to impute the rest of our points measurements. So just like we did with the front, our waist to our hip point, and now our waist to our knee point, which is my full skirt length point. And now we're going to be taking this measurement all the way down here. This is to get the accuracy and the consistency of a straight line. So with that being done, we'll go ahead to reintroduce our straight ruler and we'll be connecting all those points into each other to form a straight line. So please ensure that all your connection stops at the line that demarcates your zipper allowance from your main bodies, which is this. So at my knee point, which is my full skirt length, I'll be coming down by 2 inches, just like we did for our front bodies for our skirt folding allowance. And now I'll go ahead to extend that line all the way down this way. And of course, we're going to be connecting that point into each other to form a straight line for our skirt folding allowance. So with this being done, we'd go ahead to label our pattern. So this is my zipper allowance, which is this. This is my waist point. This is my hip point. This is my knee point. And lastly, this is my skirt folding allowance, which is this. So having gotten all the basic points, now the next thing we'd move ahead to impute is our circumference measurements. So now on your waist point line, so remember this line that demarcates your zipper from your main bodies, you're going to be placing your measurements starting from that point. So we're going to be dividing our client's waist circumference by 4. And we're going to be imputing an extra 1 inch for our back skirt dart allowance, which is basically this. Now, on your hip point line, you're going to be dividing your client's hip circumference by 4, just like you did for your front body. So at this point, I seriously need you to pay attention. So for your knee point, remember we got our client's knee circumference by taking the measurements. And for our front bodies, we divided that value by 4. So now for our back bodies, you're going to be dividing that same value, which mine was 39 inches. I'll go ahead to divide that value by 4. So having divided that value by 4, I had a total value of 9.75, which was what we imputed for our client's knee point for our front body. So now for our back body, you're going to be adding an extra 1 inch to that measurement. So having done that, mine would leave us with a total value of 10.75. So at my knee point for my back bodies, I'm going to be, imputing that value of 10.75 and not 9.75, which was what we marked for our front body. So I hope you understand. Now we're going to be imputing that value at our knee point. So now we're going to be extensively imputing that same value on our skirt folding allowance. So now we'll go ahead to reintroduce our curve ruler and our straight ruler to incorporate all the points into each other to form our skirt curve. So we've connected from our waist to hip, and now from our hip rather, to our knee point. And lastly, we'll be extending that line all the way down to our folding allowance this way. So reintroducing our slightly curved ruler rather, we'll go ahead to blend that point into each other. So one of the required measurements that we needed is our client's waist to under butt point. So at this point, I'm expecting that you have all these required measurements. So with that being said, placing our tape from our waist point, we'll go ahead to mark our client's waist to under butt point. So mine is 15 inches, which I've gone ahead to mark down. And I'll be taking it all the way down to the side to get the accuracy of a straight line. So with our straight ruler, we'd go ahead to connect that point into each other to form a straight line. So having done this, we'd go ahead to label that point to be our under butt point line, which is this. So having done that, we'd go ahead to extend this line all the way in. So now to achieve our under butt lift contour, so now on my under butt point line, on the line that demarcates the zipper allowance from the main bodies, I'm going to be coming in at that point with 1 inch. So at my under butt point line, I'll be coming in by 1 inch. Now with the aid of a curve ruler, I'll be connecting from my under butt point line all the way up to my hip point. So basically just watch the way I'm placing my curve ruler and do go ahead to replicate same for yours. So having gotten our underbutt curve at this point, now whatever I have imputed at my underbutt point, which is 1 inch, I'll be taking that measurement all the way down. So I've imputed it at my knee point and now my folding allowance point for my skate. So with that being done, we're going to go in with our straight ruler, connecting all those points into each other to form a straight line. So from our underbutt point, I'll be connecting it down to my folding allowance point. So please go ahead to blend out this point. We do not want any sharp edge at any given point. Now on our waist point, we're going to be coming in by 0.5 inch, which is this. Go ahead to reintroduce your curve ruler and blend from that point all the way into your hip points. So please, you have to pay attention to the way my curve ruler is being placed at every given point so as to achieve the same effect or end result. So this is it for it. So we've gone ahead to blend these points into each other. With this being done, you've perfectly inserted your butt lift contour for your back pattern. So now we're going to go in with our red marker and we'll go ahead to make this stroke. So this is to show you that this point has been eliminated. Having done that, now we'll go ahead to impute our dart for our back pattern. So we're going to be dividing our client's bust span by 2 and we'll be chalking it down on our waist point at that line. So we'll go ahead to chalk down the value. Placing our tape from the starting line again, we're going to be coming down by 5 inches, which is our dart length. Now, whatever we have imputed at that point, we'll be bringing it down to that point. Go in with your straight ruler and connect the points into each other to form a straight line. Now, on both sides of your dart length, go in with 0.5 inch on both sides. Now, go ahead to reintroduce your straight ruler and connect from that point all the way in on both sides. So, we've done this for our back center front. Now, we'll go ahead to replicate same for our back side fronts as well, which is this. So now for your zipper allowance, you're going to be redrawing it following the curved lines that we have for our butt lift contour. So we're going to be following that line, or the curves rather, to draw out our zipper allowance. So I did added 1.5 inches allowance and I'm going to be reintroducing my tape and I'll be taking it all the way around following the butt lift contour curve that we have at every given point. So now with the help of our curve ruler and our slightly curved ruler, we'll go ahead to redraw all the curves that we have at that point, following the dot outline that we initially made. So if you've watched this video to this point, what are you waiting for? Please kindly hit on the subscription button, like, share and follow for more of this related content. So having connected our butt lift contour on our zipper allowance, we'd go ahead to blend out this point. So you do not want any sharp edge at that point. So you'd go ahead to blend it out. And this right here is our zipper allowance. So with that being said, like we did initially for our front bodies, we're going to be adding our 1 inch sewing allowance on all this parts. So we've done that for our waist point. We'll go ahead to do that for our hip point and now our knee point. And of course, lastly, our folding allowance, which is this. Now, with going with our curve ruler, connect it all the way from your waist down to your hip. And with the head of your straight ruler, extend from your hip point all the way down to your knee point, which is basically my full skirt length point. And I'll be extending that line into my skirt folding allowance point. So with this being done, we're going to be adding 0.5 inch allowance, which we did initially for our front bodies. And this is going to be my turn up allowance for my waist point. So I'll go ahead to reintroduce my curve ruler and I'll be connecting this line all the way up. So we'll go ahead to mark out this line, just roll it into a straight line. So this is my turn up allowance for this point. So like I said, for my skirt, I won't be attaching any band. So with that being done, we'll go ahead to cut out the excesses. So I'm going to go ahead to eliminate the excesses at this point, which is basically what I'm doing. Now for our side, we'll go ahead to cut out following the basic sewing allowance which we did added on our pattern. So this is it for this part. So I know you could be asking, what happened to the 1 inch extra that we added to our knee circumference divided by 4 for our back bodies? So now you could see the excesses that we have on our zipper point. With that excess at my zipper allowance on my knee region, we've successfully eliminated the 1 inch. So the 1 inch has been transferred to my zipper allowance, which is the excesses that we have at our zipper allowance point, which we're cutting off now. So with this being done, both your front and your back knee points would most certainly align perfectly. So we'll go ahead to cut out this point as well, which is this. So with this being done, you've successfully drafted for yourself your butt lift contour pencil skirt. So you could see how beautiful this came out. Now bringing back our front pattern, we're going to be placing it side by side to ensure that both points aligns perfectly. So you could see the excesses at this point. We've gone ahead to transfer it to our zipper allowance, which is on that point. So with that being said, you could see how the waist point synchronizes, the hip point, and lastly our knee point, which is our full skirt length point. So this is what your end result would certainly come out looking like. So if you follow through this process and of course you've gotten it right, trust me when I say you definitely arrive at this. So look how beautiful this came out. Look at how perfect our curves are. Look at our butt lift contour on our zipper part. You could see how perfect and how beautiful this came out looking like. And you could see our front part. You could see all our darts. You could see how it perfectly synchronizes on all the parts. With this drafting technique, you can never get it wrong. So this is a must try for every fashion designer out there. Trust me when I say there are a lot of benefits attached to this drafting technique, many of which includes the clinch, the alignment, and evenly well-structured fit it gives your butt region. The perfection of this infused technique cannot be overemphasized. So like I said, you definitely want to try this out. So with this being said, we've come to the end of our drafting tutorial. Up next on my channel would be the sewing tutorial of this pattern. So do kindly click on the subscription button to be the first to get notified whenever the sewing tutorial drops. Thank you and see you on my next video. Bye.